Thank you so much for joining us live, and those of you that might be joining us on one of our various channels and the archived episodes. We like to start every episode, of course, saying thank you to our presenting sponsors. You can see their logos right in front of you on the screen today. And again, these organizations, companies, they're here to support you and your mission-driven goals. So no matter where you are in the nation, all of these sponsors are here supporting you. So please do give them a like or some follow. Julia Patrick started this amazing concept called the Nonprofit Show about a year ago. Julia is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. She's unable to join us today, so I've got the reins. And as I like to say, when the cat's away, the mice, or should I say turkeys, will play. So I'm Jarrett Ransom, CEO of the Raven Group, also known as the Nonprofit Nerd. But today I am thrilled to enjoy two guests. We typically have one joining us, but today we have two because two heads are better than one. But we have Kelly Balthasar as well as Heidi Fulcher, both joining us from PetSmart Charities. Welcome, ladies.
Oh, thanks for having us. Yeah. Heidi and I come as a complete set.
A lot of the time we do, yes.
You can't have one without the other. Well, today's conversation, and really, I'm just going to share extremely transparently. Kelly, you were on earlier, probably last year, maybe. Yeah, and I was like, we would love to have your voice back on. What is important? And you said, we would really like to talk to nonprofit leaders about the funder's perspective. So today's episode is really about the funder's perspective. So I'm looking forward to learning and hearing from the inside what both you and Heidi have to share.
Yeah, we're thrilled. We're really, truly honored to be able to talk to you about this. I think a lot of people think there's mystery on the other side in terms of how do you determine who you're going to award to, what grants are you going to give, what are some of the ins and outs. So love to be able to provide that opportunity to talk.
Great. Yeah, that's wonderful. And so, as we get started, I know one of our questions is, tell us more about PetSmart Charities and how you're showing up in the funding space. And I think you had shared with me before we went live, or as we say, open the digital doors, you just wrapped up a grant process. Is that right?
I did, yeah. So Heidi and I are two sides of the funding coin at PetSmart Charities. So my programs work with owned pets that are currently in homes. And then Heidi works with organizations with adoptable pets. So I just completed a grant category. It actually closed on Tuesday for preserving families. So it's working for those organizations that are helping pets with the people that are in crisis. So it's not the crisis of the pets, it's the crisis of the human. So usually crisis populations like people with housing insecurity or homelessness, or those experiencing domestic violence, might be hospitalized or going through treatment. So a lot of those grants, what can we do from a pet intervention point of view to allow you to access the human services you need, but still keep your pet?
And that is so important. Thank you for that, because we had, I don't know if this is competition, but I'd like to mention Red Rover on as well.
Oh, we love Red Rover.
They talked a lot about how, individuals experiencing domestic violence typically don't leave their situation because of their pet. And so to have these resources is really important to our communities.
Yeah. We actually work with Red Rover very, very closely, because a lot of Red Rover's domestic violence grants will actually support the building of the facilities. And then we support the capacity building that are operating to continue running those facilities. So love the Red Rover folks.
And both of you do national work. So PetSmart Charities is national. And so that's something that I think Red Rover does as well, but really to have that engagement in, again, all corners of our nation. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. And then Heidi's got her adoptable pet side. Heidi, you just finished, or you're just starting.
We're just starting with the transport grant. So with the transport, we're really looking at moving animals from overpopulated areas, which are typically the South, to areas of high demand where they don't have enough adoptable animals, mostly dogs, but we're seeing a lot of cat demand in the Northeast, North Pacific Northwest areas. And so we just opened this grant process. So that's where I'm sitting right now in the grant world, is transport. So
Well, thank you. And Heidi, let's go there. Like, what makes a good relationship with funders? Because I remember, and again, Heidi and I go way back, not to date us, but we were probably shopping at 421 together. But we were, our eye really was really funders' perspective. I was intimidated to contact foundations. I didn't know where to start, and even that funder relationships. So can you talk about that, Heidi, in particular, to know your opinions and experience with PetSmart Charities?
Yeah, I mean, if funders for us, just getting to know us is really key. Just having those building relationships. That's what we do. Kelly and I travel before COVID a lot. We go to conferences and I can't tell you how many people are like, well, I was at that conference and I didn't come up. And it's like, that's why we're there. Our faces are on our website, our emails are on our website. And, we, as funders, you look at the people who you're funding, because you can write really great grants and you can write really bad grants, but it really is you're funding in a lot of the confidence of the leader and the leadership of the people to execute the grant. So building those relationships and being keeping communications going and flowing are huge, and that's probably a really big key for us on building relationships and growing programs is the people, because it's all about people.
Yeah. I find it depends on the funder too, because not all funder are as open as we are to form those relationships. But if an email's up there, use it. If they didn't want you to contact them, they wouldn't put the email out.
Right. It was hidden. You couldn't find it.
Yes. Yeah. So it's one of those things. So if we're open and out there, and I tell people, contact me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. It's interesting too, because as open as we are, I have standard office hours every week where anyone on Thursday, today being Thursday, could call me and ask me grant questions. I give you my number and say, call and talk to me. And there are often times where I'm sitting on my hands on Thursdays, and you should take advantage of that funder, of that opportunity with funders. If they provide it, do it. As I was saying, I just closed a grant program, and it was an LOI process. So those that I'm moving forward to a full application, I am offering them the opportunity to schedule a 30-minute meeting with me before they submit their application. And I know, and I'm like, I don't think you understand. I'm really urging you to do that. I can help craft your application for you, because I am not the final decision maker. I'm one of the final decision makers. And this often happens in organizations where I'm going to have to advocate for those that I want to fund. So I want the best applications moving forward. Yeah. So utilize me if I make myself available. And a lot of folks are like, great, I'll call you if I have any questions. No, call me anyway.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I just want you both to know that you have a fan watching us. So Charleston Animal Society is joining us today. Yes. And they say, thank you so much for the impact in South Carolina, which is actually my home state as well. And yes, so thank you for that. It shows really the span of your, I don't know if that's the right word, but really of your impact and the relationships you're making. What about, PetSmart Charities and maybe funders, right, in general, do you think we're seeing a trending of, do we stick to proven methods that are tried and true, we've done them, or are you open to new ideas? What do funders like?
Both. We like both. At Charities, we love both. I love new ideas. I'm always known for, like, I'll take on a pilot project all day long. And because you don't know what you don't know. And what the good thing about pilot programs is that it's okay if they fail, right? We know that could be a potential, but then you can tweak it and work it. So I love new ideas. They're always the standard, true, proven, data supported, those kind of things. But at Charities, we like both.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it again goes back to, if you got to do the research on the funder to see if that's something they're interested in. We have, we have portfolios where we look at a portfolio, and there's a risk assessment in there. And we have a certain percentage of grants that we might look at more risky. And these are the ones that I'm okay with. And maybe it's 10 or 15% of that portfolio. It kind of varies depending on the program, where we say, this is a new program. This is a risk. This has a higher risk, but I'm willing to take this risk because of what that information will tell me. But I always tell my partners, I can't fund ideas. Although they're great ideas. I want the idea to be a full plan.
Mhm.
So you've got to
Sure.
understand what you're doing. And I have no problem with estimates of things as long as it's good estimates, not I think we'll serve this many, or I'm
Right.
guessing, no guessing. Do the background and to figure out kind of what it really is. Get your parameters in place, get your policies in place, get your collaborations in place. It's not if you fund me, I will build it, and go talk to people then. Talk to people first, put the plan together first. And I will invest in higher levels if you've got a better plan, because we do want it to succeed. And so we want to make sure you have enough funding to have that capacity to succeed. And there were a lot of programs that we funded in 2019 that were pilot programs that 2020 got derailed.
Yes.
Totally and completely understand. Provide extensions, see what happens next year, learn from it.
Well, and that's why the relationship building, as you said, take advantage of these conversations.
Mhm.
I actually started my business in 2009, and after, Kelly, it wasn't long after we met, after that economic crisis, honestly,
Yep.
and I started as a grant writer. And I remember calling a funder, making up a question so that I could utilize that access. And the funder was like, you know what, we're not funding this right now, really focusing priority.
Mhm.
So if you could really more to this priority in your proposal, that would actually help me advocate for you
Mhm.
better. So
Yep.
I think all of what you're saying, and so it's just really important. I keep going back to that relationship, but it's really important, because if it is a new idea and you've talked to the funder,
Mhm.
they, in particular, Kelly and Heidi, in this case, can really help you navigate, is this a risk that PetSmart Charities would be willing to make at this time?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we also look, I did a pilot project for adoptions up in a focused area to increase adoptions in stores. And, we actually had the idea, and we searched out our partners, but we also searched out the partners that we had built good relationships with, we knew could do it, and brought them all together to say, what do you guys think? And so that's the other piece of it that, we're fortunate to be able to do that as well, is to kind of think outside what we call the litter box, right? Think outside the box. And,
Of course, that's what you
I
call
know,
it.
right? Now you say that in normal conversation, people are like, hello,
What?
rude. Yeah. So we consider a lot of things in animal welfare that usually might not fly on the other side. But that's the beauty of kind of where charities is that we can come up with this idea too, and then go look for these groups that we know can help us, and are they interested in doing it. So it's kind of a fun relationship, but relationship building is key to, at least with us, for grant making.
Absolutely.
Jarrett, you brought up a good point. Like you said, when you called up a funder, you made up a question to be able to ask. That's key. That's key. Like, engage us. You have to have, oftentimes Heidi and I'll get emails or calls that are like, okay, here's what we do. How can you support us?
Mhm.
I can't do that. I can't do the other side.
Okay.
So come to us with here's what we're thinking. Here's where I think it'll fit with your program. Am I reading this correctly? So do your research before you come in. Of some really good ideas are, do a Google search on both the organization as well as the funder you're actually reaching out to see what they may have funded in the past. And if you can do a correlation of, oh, I see that you funded, remote area medical. We do something like that here in this community. It's slightly different in this way. Would this be within the scope?
Mhm.
It's really good to make those connections for us, because it's hard for me to take a blind call that says, how can you fund me? Because I don't know you. So
Right.
give me the options of what opportunity. Tell me that you did the work first before you reached out.
Yeah, we always talk about, doing your homework, right? Do your research, do your homework. If you're applying for a grant that you don't fit into, that's not only a waste of your time, it's a waste of everybody else's time. So we're really talking about make sure you fit that and do your homework. And, one of the things that we like to say is don't make me work harder to give you money than you're willing to work. Right. So
yes,
it's kind of like, don't make me work so hard.
So this is really the best practices. And I had just quickly pulled up that slide. So just to reference that again, best practices of communication with the funders. You both have said so much, I call them amazing nuggets of information. But what are some other best practices? Because again, I remember sitting in the chair as the grant writer or the development, person and thinking, I don't know how to even break the ice with the funder, but I will tell you, and all of you watching, Kelly and Heidi are not scary people. They are really fun people. I would want to talk to you now that I know that you have office hours, Kelly. I might just
call anytime. People don't call me. I have a lot of time.
Right. So what are some other best practices when it comes to communication with funders?
Don't do it at the last minute.
Yeah, that's probably
start the relationship before the grant opens.
Yes.
Once the grant opens, you're on a timeline. You're right there. So utilize those conversations, utilize the conferences, even virtual. I have been in virtual booths where no one have come to me this year. And those virtual conventions,
really?
Yes. And they're very inexpensive because they're virtual, $60, and you have the ability to have a conversation with a funder. Look into stuff like that. And that's just not us. I know there are other funders out there that are experiencing the same thing. So, start those conversations before the grant opens, and then feel free to ask for those conversations when the grant is open. Look at the questions, say, here's what I'm asking. Is this fitting? I am not going to be able to review the entire grant before you submit. But I can do the nuggets. Heidi, the other one that we talked about previously was having someone else review your grant.
Yeah, that's big. So, when I was in graduate school, my sister reviewed all of my papers because, she was, and it's a huge job, don't get me wrong, but she's a stay-at-home mom. But if it didn't make sense to her, it probably wasn't going to make sense to everybody else, because in my head, I know what I'm reading. And when you write something, you read it over and over and over, and you skip things. Yes. And so I have a big issue with from and form, because spell check doesn't check it. It doesn't find it. And so every time I hit send, and I'm like, dang, there's that word and it's wrong again. So it's that piece of have somebody else read it. Somebody else I'm not a grammar specialist, but I have a coworker that is spot on grammar, down to the comma. She's good. And so it's things like that. We talk about building your network and having somebody outside of, your organization review your work, because that's a piece of, what you're talking about, but did I know what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So that's big.
Your sister's going to get a lot of calls soon.
Well, and
Heidi, what did you do?
I know.
I think the other communication, especially having someone else review it, because if someone who has no contact to the organization or what you're asking for doesn't understand, I'm probably not going to either. So from a best practice point of view, oftentimes the grant writers will ask for feedback. And there's been a couple times, like a couple years, where I've just stopped giving it because I'm like, I can't. It's really hard for me to go back to the 200 applications that I've declined to provide individual feedback on all of those. But if someone calls me during my office hours, I will explain, but take it with the constructive criticism that we're providing, because oftentimes the response to that is, well, that's not what I meant. Okay, this is how it read. So this is what I'm telling you. And I can't go back after I've already declined it and say, oh, well, they meant this instead. So again, having someone else review to make sure they understand it, and utilizing any of those conversations and relationship building to make sure you're truly getting it across is really, really helpful to everybody. I don't like declining grants. I would love to fund everybody. And quite frankly, everyone continue to give those dollars at the register so that I can give way more money.
Shameless plug. Good job.
Shameless, former fundraiser. So, we want our organizations to succeed. We want to fulfill our missions. We just have got to do it within our construct. It's not our money, so we got to do it within the contracts of what availability it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's all great points. Go ahead, Heidi. Give us more. We're listening.
Well, Kelly and I did a presentation for Great Lakes Conference a month or so ago, and really about kind of grant making 101. And it really kind of looked at, walking people through steps of writing a grant. And for us, and we can't speak for any other foundation or funder, but it really is, I'm a visual person. So tell me your story, make me see your story, because your description of your program, your words are either going to make or break the grant. I mean, you can have a great budget and tell us a bad story. It's not going to matter. So it really is about making us see your issue. How are you going to solve it? If you have data, back that data up, because we're going to go look. We go back.
Yes, you have to do due diligence on the other side.
Yep, for sure.
That is really helpful. Well, let's move into, I want to talk about, and I know here's the two of you, everyone's going to ask, how do I get on their schedules, or what are your office times? Heidi, I'm going to call you out. Kelly's told us that she has them. Do you have office times?
I don't, and I should. But
sorry, Heidi.
I know Kelly just always steps up. I mean, she always makes me step up, so it's perfect. I'm really good at responding on email, and I'm also good at saying let's schedule time, because I know sometimes office hours don't fit other people's schedules.
Sure.
And so I'm kind of that. If the people want to communicate via email, that's great. If they want to schedule time, that's perfect too. I love the whole video thing anymore. We can't travel, and which is really hard on us, because we've probably traveled 50% of the time, because we got to see our partners, and we got to see shelters, and we got to be boots on the ground. And so when you're talking about funding an organization, we could see, we've been there, right? It's a physical thing. So I probably should, but at this point, send me an email. I'm happy to schedule time.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question. I always like to call these like the $1 million question. I hear so often in our sector that funders talk to other funders.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah.
Share more insight about that.
It's funny because, when you think about this particular animal welfare space, and you've got two major retailers, us and Petco, I'll even say their name. From a funder, there's a Petco apparently. From a funder's point of view, we only compete in wanting to do better grants. Really, truly, that's it.
Sure.
But we also talk to them about kind of where they're funding, where they're going, what they're doing. I was on a conversation yesterday with Best Friends. Red Rover and I collaborate. If I get a grant that I don't think I can fund that might work within their programs, I will actually say, have you heard of these guys? We talk to each other a lot. And in some cases, we work very collaboratively together. As a matter of fact, about 3 years ago, all of the animal welfare organizations that fund in disaster relief came together to create the National Animal Disaster Funding Collaborative. Because during times of disasters, all of us have these funding opportunities, and it's difficult for funders who are in the middle of a disaster to go online and submit 10 different grants. So we created a common application that is launched during times of large-scale natural disasters, where the organizations can submit one grant, all 10 of us look at it, we then get in a room and say, what can you do, what can you do, what can you do? Wow. And that way we're right sizing the funding, because often cases that single grant application was $10,000 to each of us, and they only needed $10,000, but maybe all of us funded and they got 40. So then we're over investing and therefore utilizing some of our budget that didn't need to be used. Mm-hmm. So we do work collaboratively together, not just informally through these conversations, but formally as well. And so when we tell nonprofits, our grantees, you all need to collaborate together, we're walking the walk too. We want you to be efficient, just the same way we want to be efficient with our funding.
Now, tell me when you put this into place. Was this due to the pandemic, or was this done before that?
Oh, we launched this before Harvey. Yeah, before Harvey. It was actually a brainchild that had been around for a while. And it was just a matter of getting everyone on board and finding organizations that could kind of manage it. So the first actual disaster that we launched this common application for was Harvey. Soon there followed by Irma and Maria. Right. So it was the perfect time to do this.
The perfect storm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Heidi, tell us more about, the funders talking to other funders, but then also what about Dare I say, is there ever a time where you're like, you know what, this is an organization that it just went awry. We took the risk because you guys shared about the risk assessment. Does that happen as well, where there's, it's not, hey, what can we do to support this? But let me tell you, this is what happened when we did take the risk.
My theory is like we collaborate and we talk a lot, but I always tell my partners, apply to everybody's grants if you fit the criteria. I mean, if you can get from funding from PetSmart Charities, get some funding from Petco, get some funding from Maddie's Fund. I mean, the better. Just we don't like to duplicate efforts, right? And so when we're looking at just like this transport grant, we're speaking with other large organizations that move animals as well, because the last thing we want to do is move a bunch of animals into Toledo. And there's deserts up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And so it really is like who's moving where. It's a kind of a bit of a puzzle. But those are the good things so we don't double fund. We try and make sure that we've got good coverage nationally. And so that requires really some partnerships and just collaboration with the larger organizations that do the same work. As far as things that have failed, sure. We've had some large organizations that have had challenges, and I'm not going to air dirty laundry,
right?
To put it nicely. And there's usually a reason if we won't fund again, and that's kind of the unspoken. Okay, something happened. They're not funding again.
Right. Yeah. Now, again, and none of these questions are scripted, so these are completely off the cuff, but I really like to ask, questions that maybe other people are thinking. And I've been in the sector 20 years and are 20 plus, and I really have seen a lot of experiences. What if a funder, maybe you can talk on your behalf, of course, for PetSmart Charities, said, we're not going to fund this organization again. What if there's a leadership change, or what if there's a really big change in how they do business? How would we talk to a funder and rebuild a relationship that went awry?
I think it depends on why it went awry.
Right.
Okay.
And this has happened, if it's a financial issue on why went awry, that there was either mismanagement or just non-reporting, it will have to take a lot of, it's not just a management change, because that may be not necessarily a management issue, more of a cultural practice of the organization.
Okay.
So it'll usually have to be something that if we do start those relationships, it's starting smaller, or that's where we're going to bring into the organizations, the other funders in the area that may be funding that organization. How have you worked with them recently? What have you seen? We're going to probably check references.
That makes sense. Yeah. And maybe not references that they've given you, right? You're
right.
doing
right.
Yeah. This is the behind the scenes work. We're going to check your work.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been amazing. I know that I want to share your contact information again, because Kelly, I don't think you're going to have office hours that you don't receive a phone call. And Heidi, your email is going to blow up, I'm sure, as well as your sister's. No, I'm kidding. There's no connection with your sister's contact, so I don't think she'll get anything. But this has really been eye-opening for me. Again, I started my business doing grant writing. I've been in the sector 20 plus years. I still heard new things from both of you, and this is really interesting, and it keeps me doing what I love to do. And we have also received many kudos and thank you. So you're Johnny Jenkins.
Hi, Johnny. That's our colleague.
Say hi. Someone's saying Johnny.
They work with Johnny.
They work with Johnny.
Yeah. Johnny is awesome.
Yeah.
Johnny's East Coast Heidi.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
East Coast Heidi. I like that. Julie Coleman is Kelly's #1 fan. And
my former boss.
Oh, interesting. I love that.
And she still likes Kelly. That's awesome.
I love it.
I'm lovely.
Some really great accolades and just comments for the both of you. So thank you for joining us. And I'm sorry to say our time is wrapping up, but maybe we'll have you back on again. Julia Patrick typically joins us. Today she wasn't able to, but she's CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I'm Jarrett Ransom, also known as the Nonprofit Nerd, CEO of the Raven Group. And of course, thank you to all of our presenting sponsors. They are the ones that really keep us able to have these expert level fun, very refreshing conversations with people like Kelly and Heidi. So thank you for supporting us and the sector at large. But what a packed, fun show. Wonderful for a Friday Eve. Tomorrow is Friday. Hope you'll all join us. I know, Friday. Every Friday we do an ask and answered episode. So if you have a question that you want to ask us, and in fact, I did see a question come in for the two of you, I will send you an email so maybe you can answer that for us and we can share it on a future ask and answered. So thank you both for joining us. It's been such a pleasure. And thanks for all of you watching us live or a recording of this. We will see you tomorrow. But until then, please stay well so you can do well. Thank you both so much. I am extremely appreciative.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Anytime.